श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शंकरं लोकशंकरं सदाशिवसमारम्भां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रीकान्तो मातुलो यस्य जननी सर्वमङ्गला जनकः शंकरो देवः तं वन्दे कुञ्जराननम्। श्रीराम सौमित्रि जटायुवेद षडाननादित्य कुजार्चिताय श्रीनीलकंठाय दयामयाय श्रीवैद्यनाथाय नमः शिवाय। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणि नमोस्तुते। नमः पार्वतीपतये हर हर महादेव। सर्वत्र गोविंद नाम संकीर्तनं गोविंदा गोविंदा। श्री जगदंबिकायै जय जय। With the blessings of Sri Periyawal, we are now on the second day of the lecture series on common dharmas. On the first day, we had an overview, a general look at the introduction to these common dharmas. We saw there are four purusharthas, dharma, artha, kama and moksha in human life. And there are 14 vidyasthanas, sources of knowledge to guide us in our pursuit of these purusharthas. Now these 14 vidyasthanas were a part of common syllabus in our universities in ancient times, Nalanda, Takshashila, etc. In fact, people continued to study them very rigorously till the British came to India. In the southern part of India, we had what are known as Ghatika Sthanas, universities, which are known as Ghatika Sthanas, schools of learning. One of them, a very prominent one, was located at Kanchipuram. That is the reason why this present Yanattur University was located at Kanchipuram, as a continuation of the memory of the earlier Ghatika Sthana. So such was our interest in pursuit of knowledge, so that the Purusharthas can be pursued properly. Now we saw that the Vedas are at the root of the sources of knowledge, and Dharma Shastra is what actually guides us on Dharma. Dharma has got two characteristics. One is the Vidhi and Nishedha, the do's and don'ts. Second is the inherent nature of any being. Now, the inherent nature of human being is to follow the path of Dharma. That is why the two are interrelated. This is what we saw last time. Dharmo Vishwasya Jagata Pratishtha Vedo Khilo Dharma Moolam Dharmasaram Idam Jagati. So say Shastras. Dharma is at the root of everything, and Dharma derives its authority from Vedas. Now, without Dharma, there is no creation. This is what we saw. And dharmas are again of two major categories. One is common dharmas, the other is dharmas specific to a varna and an ashrama, varnashrama dharmas. Now, common dharmas are common for all humankind at all times. And there are many listings of these common dharmas. We chose the one given by Manu, which says, Dhritihi kshamadamosteyam shauchamindriya nigraha dhir vidya satyamakrodho dashakam dharma lakshanam. These 10 are the lakshanas of dharma, the characteristics of dharma, common dharmas. The first one was dhriti, which we saw in some detail last time. Dhriti is steadfastness, being steadfast in the pursuit of the objective of moksha or any of the four purusharthas with the ultimate destination of moksha and with the steadfastness to the path which you have chosen to attain that. There may be many paths sanctioned by Shastras, but you have chosen one and be steadfast to that. This is what we saw last time. In fact, we saw a lot of examples from Puranas in association with this concept of steadfastness. But there are also examples of steadfast devotion in recent times. Now, if you take Andal, if you take Mirabai, they were steadfast in their devotion. They were 100% certain that their objective was to attain Krishna, their objective was to attain Ranganatha, and so on. All the Nayanmars, all the Vaishnava saints, Alvars, all of them were steadfast in their pursuit of the objective. Now, next is the ideal of Kshama. Next in order is Kshama. Kshama is commonly understood as being able to pardon somebody if he makes a mistake. This is what we think. Kshama prarthana. If somebody makes a mistake, he comes and says sorry. We say, okay, never mind. We have done Kshama. And he has asked for Kshama and we have given him Kshama. This is what we think. There is nothing wrong with that. This is the very, very basic characteristic of Kshama. Kshama is much higher. As usual, in our Shastras, same terminology, same term describes several levels of a certain characteristic, sometimes even different characteristics. For example, in this case, Kshama, what we saw was just the beginning of Kshama. You have to go higher in Kshama, and the higher you go, you will find the ideals of forbearance. Whatever happens to you, don't react. That is Kshama. And not only you don't react, you show compassion. That is also inbuilt into Kshama. So there are two major ideas in Kshama. One is forbearance, another is compassion. Now, if somebody harms us, naturally we react. We become angry with the man. We think that this fellow has harmed me for no reason or for insufficient reason. Now, this is a common, basic human reaction. This is what we should not do, this is what Shastra says. But we know very well that this is the person who harmed us for no reason. Why should we not be angry with him? Why should we not react? That is a common question. The answer is very simple, but very deep. Very simple, but very deep. It goes to the very depth of our philosophy. Now, any harm, in fact, any good which comes to us is not brought by any individual or any circumstance. There are individuals and circumstances which appear to be bringing us good or bad, but that's only appearance. If that particular circumstance was not there, some other circumstance would have brought the same result of good or bad. If that individual was not there, some other individual would have brought the same result. Why? Because that is written in our karma. That is where prarabdha karma comes. Because on this particular day, I am supposed to face that particular situation. This is expected to happen. That is written in my jataka, in my horoscope, the day I was born. So this man was only an instrument in making that happen. So there is no question of reacting to the instrument. You have to react to the source, and source is ourselves. So the only reaction is you have to improve yourself. The only possible reaction is you caused this to happen yourself. So it is for you to improve yourself so that such a thing does not happen again. Now, whatever is there in prarabdha karma is bound to happen. You can't avoid it. But at least you can avoid reacting with anger. That is possible. That is within your possibility, within your capability, within your scope. So that is what Kshama is all about. So forbearance is not looking at the instrument, but looking at ourselves as the cause of that particular, even good. The good has come to us because of our past good deeds. The bad has come to us because of our past bad deeds. So we should improve upon our good performance and try to avoid bad performance. So that is entirely in our hands and not in the instruments that came our way. So this is the basis of Kshama, the philosophical basis of Kshama. So compassion is inbuilt into Kshama. That is a higher level of Kshama. That is, you are not only patient, you are not only forbearing, you go out of the way and do good to the man who harmed you. Why should I do good to him? Because Paropakarartham idam shariram. Doing good is our nature. Doing good should be our aim. So, this is the chance for us to do good. By doing good, we not only forget the harm he did, we completely cover it up with our good. He becomes good to us. Even if he does not become good to us, at least we are satisfied. We have attained peace. This is the higher level of Kshama. Kshama encompasses not only forbearance, it encompasses compassion. So, now we find a lot of examples to this in our history, in our Puranas. Krishna, for example, gave an opportunity to Shishupala not once but 100 times for him to abuse him in open sabha. We know that. When Yudhishthira was performing Rajasuya Yajna, Shishupala came there. He became angry with Krishna being given the Agra Puja. He started abusing him. Then immediately Krishna started counting 1, 2, 3. How many times they were abusing? Because he had publicly told Shishupala's mother, Shishupala also knew that if he exceeds abuses by more than 100, then I will take action. I will punish him. He had told this clearly. So it was up to Shishupala not to do that. But he said, this fellow is a cowherd boy. I am a king. Who is he? He went on in that strain. So when he reached 100, then only Krishna used his chakra. So why Krishna has to use his chakra? Why did he not continue with his forbearance? There comes the duty. See, Krishna is also a Kshatriya. A Kshatriya's duty is not to, he is not a Brahmana. So Kshatriya's duty is not to go on accommodating every evil, to curb the evil, to subdue the evil. That is the Kshatriya's duty. So he did his duty. The duty comes first. Forbearance is before that point was, because he had also given an assurance. He kept his word. So forbearance was also part of his promise in this case. Similarly, we find that in Ramayana, for example, Rama sent Angada to Ravana at the last minute as an ambassador of peace to negotiate peace. Similarly, in Skanda Purana, you find that Subramanya sent his brother Veerabahu to Shurapadma to negotiate peace. Now, this is all supreme acts of forbearance, isn't it? They have come for a long battle, a strenuous battle. They are at the forefront of the battlefield, but still they chose to walk the path of peace. That is the height of forbearance. Krishna himself went, before the start of the Mahabharata war, Krishna himself went as an ambassador of peace to the Kauravas. So these are all acts of forbearance which we see in our Puranas. Now, this forbearance is not to be confused with not doing duty, as we saw in Shishupala's case. Now, there are other examples of where duty and forbearance should not be confused. Another very striking example is the case of Guru Ninda or Ishvara Ninda. criticism of Guru or criticism of Ishvara. Shastra says very clearly, the very Shastra which lays out these 10 common dharmas also says in no uncertain terms that whenever you find someone criticizing or abusing your Guru or abusing Ishvara, immediately you pluck the tongue out of that fellow who's doing this crime. Immediately you go and pluck his tongue. So where is the question of forbearance here? There is no forbearance because this is your duty. Because Ishvara Ninda and Guru Ninda are such a serious, intensely serious crime that it requires immediate on-the-spot punishment. That's what Shastra says. Now, Shastra also says that if you are a Brahmana, you are a very sattvic person, you cannot go and pluck him because he is a very powerful fellow who is doing this. What should you do in that case? Shastra provides that. Shastra says very clearly, this is the priority number one. If you cannot do that, walk away from that place. That is within your capability, isn't it? Don't be there even for a minute. Because if you are there, you are a party to the crime. As you know, in Panchamaha Patakas, the fifth Pataka is to be associated with anyone who commits the first four crimes. First four crimes are killing a Brahmana and so on, consuming liquor and so on, Gurutalpagamana and so on. Now, anyone who commits those crimes, and if you are associated with him, that is the fifth crime, equally criminal. So also, here also, in the case of Ishvara Ninda or Guru Ninda, if you are simply present there, you are deemed to be a party, so you should walk away. If you cannot punish him, if you cannot pluck out his tongue, like the Shastra says, at least walk away. So there are lots of such examples, such regulations. Now, on the battlefield, this happened in Ramayana, this happened in Skanda Purana also. Ravana became completely alone on one day. One of the first few days of war. He was alone. His chariot was broken, his horses were broken. He lost all his arsenal. He was completely powerless. That was the ideal time for Rama to kill him. And there was nothing wrong with killing him. What is wrong? Nothing wrong. It's a battle, part of the war. So, but what did Rama do? He said, never mind, go home, come tomorrow. Very beautiful shloka. Tasmat parishranta yati vyavasya natvam sharer mrityu vasham nayami. I won't hand you to mrityu today with my arrows. Prayahi jana viranarditaspam pravishya ratrim chara rajalankam. You are anardita, you are completely injured, tired. Go to Lanka, spend the night. Ashwasya nirvyahirati chadhanvi tadabalam prekshyati me rasastaha. Tomorrow come with a new chariot fully armed. Then we will fight. Same thing happened in the war with Surapadma. Subramanya also did the same thing. The very second day of the war, there was a 6-day war. The very second day of the war, he came, Surapadma. In spite of his son's advice, he came. And he completely lost the battle. He was completely powerless, all alone, like Ravana. And same thing. Subramanya told him, you go now, come tomorrow. Ita param suram tyajer mayodita matistave kripavashan mayadhuna nashaktiratra tatyaje. I could have killed you now. I could have dispatched my Shakti, my veil, my spear. I am not doing that kripavashati, out of compassion. So forbearance and compassion, we are seeing the height of forbearance and compassion here. Not reciprocating evil with evil, but trying to do good. In the same Ramayana, we find not on a battlefield, but after the war was over, Ravana was killed, and Sita was informed by Hanuman that Rama is waiting for you, war is over. Then Hanuman asked Sita, should I kill all these Rakshasis who tortured you, for 1 whole year in Ashokavanam. What was Sita's reply? Forbearance and compassion. Napara papamadatte paresham papakarmanam. If you do that, you are also doing the same thing what they did. Paresham papakarmanam. Samayo rakshitavyastu santas charitra bhushanaha. Those who are shishtas, charitra bhushanaha, known for their sterling character, they will not act like this. Papanam va subhanam va vadharhanam athapi va karyam karunyamaryena nakaschyan naparadhyati. The very famous phrase, nakaschyate naparadhyati. There is no one on earth who has not committed a crime. So be compassionate with them. Leave them. They were all servants. They did what Ravana told them to do. This is the height of compassion we see. So we find forbearance and compassion go together in all these cases. Of course, it's extremely difficult. It's very easy to preach, very easy to study in Puranas, but very difficult for us as ordinary human beings to practice. Nobody denies that. But we have to start somewhere. Now, another case where similar forbearance and compassion, we see the height of it in Mahabharata. Very pathetic situation. Bring tears to your eyes. Ashwath, after the war was over, Mahabharata war was over, Ashwathama was completely shaken. He wanted to kill the Pandavas stealthily. So he went in the night. He killed 5 young Pandava children who were sleeping just outside their home. He thought he had killed Pandavas, but he had actually killed the sons of Pandavas. Later on, during the latter part of the night, when this came to light, Draupadi's grief knew no bounds. She was all fury. She said, "Whoever has done it, bring him to me. I want him killed in my presence." Krishna knew it was Ashwathama. So Krishna and Arjuna, they went after him. Ashwathama was running, somehow they caught him and then bound him. In fact, there only Arjuna wanted to kill. Then Krishna said, no, you let us take him to Draupadi. He was brought before Draupadi. Now what Draupadi would have done, she should have said, kill this fellow. But what does, it is described very nicely in Mahabharata as well as Srimad Bhagavatam. Now I am reading shlokas from Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes very nicely. Niriksha Krishna Bhagavatam Gurosvatam. Vamasvabhava Kripayananamacha. Vamasvabhava, very gentle temperament, very gentle nature. She saw Krishna had brought Ashwathama. Guru Sutam. Who is Ashwathama? He is the son of the Guru, Dronacharya. Kripayananamacha. On seeing him, instead of getting furious, she was furious just a few minutes ago. Kripayananamacha, out of compassion, she paid him respects because he is Guruputra. Uvachachasa hantasya bandhananayanam sati. She could not bear the sight of Guruputra being bound like this and brought like a prisoner. Asahanti, she could not bear the sight. Muchyatam mesha brahmano nitaram guruhu. She cried, Muchyatam, leave him free. Free him. He is, after all, Brahmana and he is our Guru. So leave him. Now, can there be a better idea of compassion, forbearance and compassion? Now, in recent times, we find in the story of Ramana Maharshi, when Ramana Maharshi was there in his Ramanashramam, in the early days of Ramanashramam starting, it was a very small setup, very few people were there. There was no property as such, a small ashram. But some robbers came in the night. They searched for materials for thieving. They didn't find any. They bet Ramana. They attacked him and then left. So morning only the followers, the Shishyas came to know about what had happened. Now, what did Ramana say to his Shishyas? What he said was, yes, these thieves came, they were looking for some valuables. What valuable is there in our ashram? Nothing is there. So they were disappointed. They bet me, they attacked me. They did puja of a different kind. You are also doing puja. You bring flowers, you bring fruits. They do puja, pushai, as they say in Tamil. This is a puja of a different kind. That's what they did. So he mentioned it so lightly, so humorously, but the Shishyas were shocked. This is the example of forbearance and compassion in the present time. Now, for forbearance, the classical example is Bhumi, Earth. Because it is Earth which sustains all of us, and it is the Earth which we keep on breaking every day, for not only for growing food grains, for foundations of our buildings and so on. So there is no example higher than Prithvi, higher than Earth for Kshama. That is why in Ramayana, when qualities are described, Rama's qualities, Kshamaya Prithvi Samaha, Valmiki says. In Kshama, he is like Prithvi. So Thiruvalluvar also says the same thing. We should act like Prithvi. Now, the other day we mentioned what are known as Atma Gunas. Like these 10 common dharmas, there are 8 Atma Gunas. Now, out of the 8 Atma Gunas, the first 2 are Daya and Shanti. Shanti is another word for Kshama. Daya is compassion. Compassion and forbearance are 2 of the 8 Atma Gunas which are mentioned, which every human being should strive for. So, this is what Kshama is all about. Now, we find in Puranas, lot of sages cursing a lot of people for various transgressions of dharma. This we find on many occasions. Now, in all those cases, we find that though the sage curses the particular person for that transgression, for that offense, immediately when the offender prays to him for Kshama, what does he do? He says, well, once I have pronounced the curse will act. I can't withdraw the curse because that is the part of the system, action and reaction. What I can do is to reduce the intensity. Now, there are many cases where the curse is withdrawn after some time. When this happens, the curse will go and so on. This we find. This is all an expression of forbearance and compassion. Srimad Bhagavata talks about a case like this. Many are the cases, many Puranas. There were 2 sons of Kubera, Nalakubera and Nalakobara and Manigriva. They had committed an intolerable offense to Narada. So Narada cursed them, you become trees. Immediately they prayed, they said, no, unknowingly this has happened, please pardon us. Then what did he say? Yes, the curse will act, you will become trees, but you will get your salvation at the hands of Krishna. Is it not a blessing? Otherwise, they would never have got that opportunity to be blessed by Krishna. So, here we find Narada blessing them indirectly, though it was a curse. They became trees. They were trees for a long time in Vrindavana, till Krishna was born. Then Krishna, as a child, gave them moksha. The trees were uprooted, and so there emerged these 2 yakshas. Nalakobra and Manigriva, and they were restored to their old position. Not only old position, they were given deliverance after due efforts. See, deliverance is never immediate, so you have to put in efforts. But after due effort, deliverance is assured. That is the benefit of Krishna Darshan. So, like this, we find that there are many examples of Kshama. Kshama is a very wide field, wide application. In fact, Kshama is required in our everyday activities, everyday experience. Kshama is very much required. Next is Damaha. Dama is restraint of external sense organs. There are 5 sense organs, isn't it? Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. The eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, and the skin. The feeling of touch, the speech, the vision, the hearing, and the smell. These are 5 senses which bring outward experiences to us. Now he says, keep them under control. Damaha is keeping them under control. There is a very interesting story. Now, before that, let us look at the definition of Dama. Nigraho bhakhya vrittinam damayat abhidiyate. Bhakhya vrittinam nigraha. The external vrittis, tendencies, actions, control them. That is called Dama. Now, Dama is closely related to Shama, though it is not mentioned here. We are going to see what is called Indriya Nigraha after some time. Now, Shama is control of the mind, the Antakarana. Antakaranas are 4 according to our Shastras: mind, Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, and Ahankara. Mind, intellect, Chitta, and ego. Now, all these 4 should be brought under control, mainly Manas, because the other 3 are related to Manas. There are thoughts. It's not like 4 different organs or 4 different compartments. No. They're all simply thoughts. They are given different names because thoughts of different categories, different kinds. So, mind should be brought under control. And for mind to be, for helping that process of bringing mind under control, senses also should be under control. Because if you leave the senses wayward to do whatever they like, to go wherever they want, then it's very difficult to bring the mind under control. So the 2 go together. That is why Dhamma is very important. Now, there is an interesting story, as I said, on this Dhamma. Prajapati once called Asuras, Devas, and human beings. All the 3 wanted to meet him. They went and had his darshan for Upadesha, advice. He gave them advice. What is the advice he gave? He told them only one akshara, Da. He told Devas, Da. He told Asuras, Da. He told human beings, Da. Same Da he said to everybody. So, it was not clear. What is this Da? Then they cogitated on this and they found. Asuras found that the Da means Daya, because that is what they lack. What they lack only should be imparted to them, isn't it? What they lack is Daya, compassion. So they say they understood it as Daya. Now Devas understood it as Damaha, which is what we are now seeing. Damaha, restraint of sense organs, because they are used to enjoying bhogas of heaven, unlimited bhogas of heaven. So sense organs are free, ever free. So bring them under control. Because even for Devas, you cannot be in Swarga all the time. There is a time limit, even for them. So after that, what will happen? They will be born as humans or some other birth. So you have to undergo these experiences. So the idea of Dhamma is suitable for them, necessary for them. Then for humans, da means dhanam. Because tyaga, sacrifice, dana, charity, if you cultivate this, it will attack your ego like anything else, like nothing. The best attack on ego is to cultivate dhanam, charity, tyaga. Because the more you gather, accumulate things for your own enjoyment, you are deviating from the four purusharthas, particularly the last purushartha of moksha. So, to develop detachment, after detachment is the first lesson in our Jnana Marga, Viveka, Vairagya. So, to develop Vairagya, this is what is required, dana. You keep parting with your most loved articles. So, humans are not good in that. Humans are basically known to be selfish. So, this is the advice he gave. So, damaha is important here in association with daya and dhanam. Now, when we understand dhamma, we have to understand that desire is at the root of all our actions. We want to achieve something. Something or the other is always to be achieved. There is always something which we are aiming at. Of course, it may be part of artha, it may be part of kama, one of the two purusharthas. Nothing wrong if it is a artha or kama sanctioned by shastras. Nothing wrong. But even then, if you spend all your energy in the pursuit of artha and kama, even though it is based on dharma, you have forgotten your ideal of moksha, which is the only ideal for which human birth has been given to you. So, all shastras are uniformly emphatic in saying desire should be thrown out root and branch. But it's not possible to do it in a day. So, you have to keep at it. And desire is of many kinds, multifarious, endless. So, what Shastra has done is to divide it into three major categories. And they call it Ishana Trayam. Ishana is attachment. Three basic attachments. It is Vitteshana, Putreshana, and Lokeshana. Attachment to wealth, attachment to your progeny, your sons, and attachment to world. Attachment to world here means, Lokeshana means attachment to fame. Here it means fame. I must get a good name. People should talk well of me. This is Lokeshana. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, nothing wrong with even Vitteshana and Putreshana. But it should be within limits. When it goes beyond limits, then the trouble starts. A minimum of Vitteshana, a minimum of Putreshana, a minimum of Lokeshana, nothing wrong. As long as it is accompanied by good deeds. It is driven by good aims. But trouble is, these good deeds and good aims take leave of you after some time, and lobha, greed, takes hold of you. That is what we see in these examples. Now, Vitteshana, Duryodhana is the best example. He was mad after getting the kingdom. That is Vitteshana. Putreshana, same Mahabharata. Dhritarashtra is the best example. He was mad after Duryodhana, Putra Moha. That is Putreshana. Lokeshana, thirst for fame. It is there for all asuras. If you look at all the history of all asuras, they are all driven only by this. I must somehow drive Devas out of my way. Devas should be driven out of the kingdom of heaven. I should go and sit in Indra's chair. This is what you find always. Why? Because that is Lokeshana. Then people will say, see, this fellow drove out Indra. He is more powerful than Indra. He is very strong. So everybody will go and praise him, worship him. And that is what I want. Hiranyakashipu. Best example of this Lokeshana. There is a very beautiful verse in our Shastras which describes that there is no limit to this desire of human beings. Yat prithivyam vrihiyavam hiranyam pasavastriyah ekasyapi na paryaptam iti matva shamam vrajayate. All the food grains in this world, yat prithivyam vrihiyavam hiranyam, all the gold in this world, all the cattle in this world, all the women in this world will not be adequate even for one human being. Ekasyapi na paryaptam. If you go on accumulating, if you go on enjoying, there will be no end. There are many stories in this regard. Iti matva samam vrajayet. Knowing this, that is where intellect comes. We are going to see later on. Dhihi is one of the common dharmas, buddhi. Buddhi has to be employed. That is why he says, iti matva shamam vrajayet. Shama is control of mind. You should control your mind. Now, people go to very unexpected length when pursuing their desires. Ramana Maharshi quotes a story from Yoga Vasishtam. He says, this is a very nice story. He says, there was a Mahout, he was cruel with his elephant, very cruel with his elephant. Elephant was very distressed with him. One day, when he was unfettering the elephant, he slipped and fell down on the floor. The elephant had become unfettered, this fellow had fallen on the floor. So it was ideal for the elephant to trample him and put him to death. It was easy. But the elephant didn't do that. The elephant had compassion for Mahout. After all, he is the one whom I have lived with all these, though he was cruel to me. So what did the elephant do? It ran away into the forest. It left the Mahout and ran into the forest. It spared him and escaped. But the Mahout was wicked. Mahout could have kept quiet. What did he do? He went and searched for the elephant in the forest. At last he located. He wanted to take revenge for having left him and run away into the forest. What did he do? He dug a deep pit and was waiting for the elephant to, like that. That's how they catch elephants in the forest. Elephants are caught in this manner. So he knew how to catch the elephant. So he dug a deep pit, covered with grass and all that. The elephant fell into the pit and he killed the elephant. The elephant, which could have killed the Mahout, was killed by this Mahout. This is the height of selfishness, anger, unrestrained mind, unrestrained sense organs. Yoga Vasishta gives this story. That's why Shastra repeatedly says, Ashahi paramam dukkham, nairashyam paramam sukham. Ashahi paramam dukkham. The most sorrow comes from desire. The most pleasure, the most joy comes from abandoning desire. Nairashyam paramam sukham. We find another nice, interesting story. Agastya and Nahusha. Nahusha was a king, a human being. He was a king on earth. When Indra in Swarga, in a certain situation, he had committed Brahmahati, so he killing of a Brahmana. So that is after Vritravada. Vritra was the Brahmana. The way he killed Vritra stealthily was not liked by Devas. So he felt very bad. Nobody respects me. I've got a very bad name and so on. He disappeared. He hid himself in Manasarovar. So Swarga was left without a king. Now Shastra says neither Bhumi nor Swarga, they should never be left without a king. King should always be there. So Saptarishis were looking for a substitute Indra and they found Nahusha. Nahusha was, according to them, the best. He was indeed, otherwise, why would Saptarishi select him? He was indeed a very righteous king. He had made a name for righteousness, for a dharmic king. So he was chosen. He went and became Indra. He was anointed as Indra. For the first few months, he was nice. He stuck to Dharma. One day, this is how it happens. One day, he found that Indra has disappeared, but Indrani is there in Swarga. Indrani should be my possession because now I am Indra. He forgot the basic lesson that Indra is a possession and Indrani belonged to the original Indra, not to him. Not that he didn't know, he was an expert, he was an Nipuna in Dharma. Not that he didn't know this, he knew. But the lust after Indrani took hold of him. Then, well, it's a long story how there are a lot of developments before he could get Indrani to say something. Now, Indrani, on the advice of Brihaspati, Devaguru, Brihaspati, what she said was, okay, I will accede to your demand, provided you do one thing for me. From your palace, and Indrani was at that time in Brihaspati's house. So, from your Indra's palace, you come in a palanquin to Brihaspati's residence. The palanquin should be carried by Saptarishis. This is the condition. If you do that, I will accede to your demand. She knew somehow this will fail. That is what Brihaspati had told her. Somehow this will fail. By Bhagavati's grace, this will fail. So, Saptarishis were called and they were carrying the palanquin. This fellow was sitting. Nahusha was sitting. Now, out of the Saptarishis, one was Agastya. Now, Agastya is short, so his steps are short correspondingly. He could not keep pace with the other 6 who were carrying the palanquin. So he was not only slow, the palanquin was also a little bit shaking because of this. Not evenly, not smoothly proceeding, and it was not fast. And this fellow wanted to go fast to the Brihaspati that he wanted to see Indrani fast. So he became very restless. He shouted at Agastya, Sarpa Sarpa. Sarpa means go fast, fast, fast. Agastya was waiting for this kind of opportunity because all the Saptarishis were very angry for being asked to carry, because they had appointed this Indra, and normal courtesy requires that Indra's orders should be obeyed. That is why they had to carry the palanquin. But this is not the way you treat Saptarishis. So they were very angry. So they were waiting for an opportunity. So Agastya struck immediately. What did he do? He pronounced a curse on Nahusha. He said Sarpa Sarpa, Sarpo Bhava. He said Sarpa Sarpa. He said Sarpo Bhava. You become a Sarpa. He fell down immediately as a snake to earth. As a dangerous big snake. Now, then he prayed to Agastya. This has happened out of my ignorance, this, that, and all. Before he dropped down to earth. Then Agastya was kind enough, was compassionate enough to bless him. He said, when you have to wait till Krishna Avatara, during Krishna Avatara, you will gain moksha. So Krishna came there, this serpent was there in the forest, and he gave him moksha. So we find there is no limit to desire. Desire can lead to anything. Desire leads to lobha, greed, and greed leads to everything. There is a beautiful verse in Devi Bhagavatam which says what lobha will do. Pitaram, mataram, bhratren, gurun, swajana bandhavan, hanti lobha samavishtaha, yanonatra vicharana. A man who is a lobhi, who is possessed of lobha, greed, what will he do? He will not think twice before he kills his own father, Pitaram, Mataram, Bhratrin, his own father, his own mother, his own gurus. his own brothers, Swajana Bandhavan, other relatives. Natra Vicharana, there is no doubt, he says. Abhaksha Bhakshanam Lobhat Agamya Gamanam Tatha. He will do anything. He will eat things which should not be eaten. He will go and run after women whom he should not do, run after. Karoti kila trishnartho dharmatyagam tatha punaha. He is using a beautiful word. Karoti kila trishnartha. He is to be pitied. Trishna artha. Artha is one who is suffering, actually. He is suffering from Trishna. Trishna is extreme desire. Trishna is extreme desire. So, he is Trishnartha. So, a Trishnartha will do anything. Dharmatyagam tatha punaha. He will abandon his dharma. He will abandon his dharma. He will do anything like what is listed here. That is why Veda says very clearly, we should be very careful with our sense organs. Don't think. Sense organs are, after all, external. They are controlled by the mind. I have good control over my mind. Let my eye see anything. Let my ear hear anything. Let my nose smell anything. Let my hand touch anything. Nothing will happen to me. That is very dangerous. That is why Veda, the prayer in Vedas is Bhadram Karne Vishranyama Devaha Bhadyam Bhadram Pashye Makshabhir Yagatraha. Bhadram Karnebhi Shranyama. Always let me listen to auspicious, good things. Bhadram Pashye Makshabhir Yagatraha. Let me look with my eyes at auspicious things, not inauspicious things. So, in fact, the ears and the eyes are the most powerful sense organs out of the five. The other three are not always in use. These two are always in use. Whether you like, during the hours when you are awake, eyes and ears are always open. They receive the signals from outside. Whereas the nose, the faculty of speech and the faculty of touch are not present always. They have to be employed. Whereas these are involuntary. You keep on, that's why the emphasis is on these two. The Veda also refers to these two. So if you restrain these two, you have achieved most of what you need to achieve. Like this, there are many stories. Indra lusting after Ahalya. That's what we find in Ramayana. In fact, Ahalya was the daughter of Brahma. Brahma had created Ahalya as the most beautiful woman. And the moment she was created, Indra lusted after Ahalya. The moment she was created. And Brahma warned Indra, this is Ahalya is not for you. And what he did, he handed over Ahalya to Gautama, who was a sage. Gautama had not married Ahalya at that time. Gautama was in charge of keeping Ahalya with him for safe custody, for protecting from Indra. Then after a few years passed, Brahma gave Ahalya in marriage to the same Gautama. But Indra had not forgotten Ahalya. That is why when Gautama was not present in his ashram, he came and he took the garb of Indra, garb of Gautama. He appeared like Gautama, but he was Indra. And he went after Ahalya. This is what we find in Ramayana. And then Gautama came in time and then he punished Indra. He cursed Indra. Now, this shows there is no limit for a man's desire. Absence of Dhamma will lead to Kama, will lead to Lobha. These are various stories which we find not only in Puranas, but we can also find them in post-Purana period, in what we call as historical period. There are many, many stories. So it is essential that we practice Dhamma. Dhamma includes Ahimsa also. Because if you don't restrain your sense organ, you may end up doing himsa, doing violence, because you have not achieved your desire. Any desire which is not fulfilled leads to krodha, isn't it? Kama which is not fulfilled leads to krodha. Kama which is fulfilled leads to lobha. So krodha will lead to himsa. So dama is connected with all this. When you control desire, you have to control krodha, you have to control lobha, you have to entertain ahimsa, you have to entertain generosity, opposite of lobha. So this is how it is. Should we stop now, or are we going to have questions, or should we continue?
Mama, up to you. I've not seen any major questions come. So I think we can go on for another 7 minutes.
We can go on for another 5 minutes.
Yes,
Okay,
we are
fine.
at 9:55 or 9:55,
Okay.
another till
Okay.
about 10 to now.
Okay, right, fine. Then we'll proceed. So we have seen today so far Kshama and Damaha. Kshama and Dama. Patience, forbearance, compassion, self-restraint, subduing of sense organs. Next, in the common dharma list is Asteyam. Asteyam means non-stealing. Asteyam means non-stealing. Now it looks very simple. No, we don't want to steal anybody's property. It is much more than that. Like Kshama meant much more than if somebody comes and says sorry, excuse him. It is meant much more than that. We saw that. Similarly, Asteyam means much more than that. It means abstention from unlawful gain. Abstention from unlawful gain. Not only that, it means non-covetousness beyond one's needs. This is the highest level of asteyam. Every dharma has several levels, as we have been seeing. Now, the highest level of asteyam is non-covetousness beyond one's needs. Whatever you need, you should possess only that much. There is no need to possess more than that. This is what asteyam is all about. Actually, asteyam dictionary meaning, literal meaning is non-stealing, not to steal someone else's property. But now we have extended it to mean that we should not only not steal others' property, we should not aim at hoarding more than what our basic needs are. Now, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a beautiful verse where this idea is conveyed. Yavat bhriyate jataram tavat swatvam hi dehinam adhikam yobhimanyeta sasteno dandamarhati. One who accumulates more than what his belly needs, jatara is belly, stomach. Yavat bhriyate jataram, whatever is required by his belly, tavat swatvam hi devinam, that much only he should gather. Adhikam yobhimanyeta, if he goes and gathers or even desires, abhimanyeta means desire, not even actual gathering, even desiring for more than what his basic needs are. Adhikam yobhimanyeta sasteno dandamarhati. The last part is very important. Saha stenaha, he is a thief. The verdict is given here. Because he has coveted more than his basic needs, he is a thief. He should be punished. Saha stenaha saha dandamarhati. He should be punished. This is what Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us. This is the basic of our Shastra. Basic, being always contented with what you have. In fact, when it comes to Brahmanas, at least in the yugas gone by, Kali Yuga may be slightly different. In the yugas gone by, the requirement for an ideal Brahmana, a Shishta Brahmana, was he should not hoard even food for the next day. Next day's food will come. Don't hoard food for tomorrow. This was the ideal in those days. Unchavritti, as we come across nowadays, going for bhiksha and all that, they are all based on this concept. Uncha is actually food grains left in the field after the farmer thrashes paddy. Whatever is left in the food grain, you go and collect it, so that you don't really stand in the way of somebody else's possession. You take whatever is left behind. This was Unchavritti. So that was the height of Asteyam, practiced in those days. Puranas described this, and we know it was practiced in our Bharata Desha not many years ago. Now in Sri Rudram, we find Sena means thief, Taskara means robber, a bigger thief. Now both the terms are used for Shiva. Stenanam Pataye Namo Namo, Taskaranam Pataye Namo Namo, the head of Taskara, the head of robbers, the head of thieves. Now there the purpose is twofold. Why he is called Stenapati and Taskaranam it is for developing Samadarshana. When you see a thief, when you see a robber, you should see the Brahman in him. You should not see him as a thief or a robber. This is the idea behind. That's why in Sri Rudram you find Shiva being described as so many objects, as so many human beings, so many animals, so many birds. Because all creation is Shiva. There is nothing other than Shiva in this creation. That is the aim of going to that extent, describing so many created beings and calling all of them as Shiva, so that you see only Shiva whenever you look at anything. That is the basic idea of calling him Stenanampati, Taskaranam and all that. Of course, in a secondary, indirect meaning, he goes and robs all our bad vasanas, all our bad deeds, all our sins, if we go and surrender ourselves to him. So that way he is a thief of our bad vasanas. That way he is a Pati of Stenas, Pati of Taskara. But that is a secondary meaning. That's the more important meaning. More a meaning which is more suited to Jnana Marga is the one which I mentioned earlier. Now, when we extend this kind of idea, I think it is time now, 9:30. So I think we halt now and we continue tomorrow with this Asteya and the balance common dharma. If there are any questions, even now we can handle them. If there are no questions, we close for the day. Are there any questions?
If there are any questions, please unmute yourself. You can unmute and ask your questions.
I think there are no questions. I can't hear any question.
Yeah, I
Yes,
don't see anything in the chat either.
Yeah, no questions,
Okay.
Mama.
Okay,
so maybe eventually, as we make more sessions, maybe there'll be more questions coming.
Okay, yeah, maybe. And they can also send their questions in writing as was suggested in the last session.
Yeah, Ma.
They can send the written questions and we can still answer them.
Yeah.
So we close for the day. By the grace of Sri Periyawal, this session has gone on well. I thank Kanchi Kamakoti Seva Foundation for organizing this so nicely. I thank all the attendees for giving a patient hearing. Namah Parvati Pataye Har Har Mahadeva Sarvatra Govinda Nama Sankirtanam Govinda
Govinda Govinda Thanks, Mama. Namaskaram.
Jaya Jaya.
Namaskaram, Mama.
Thank you.
Namaskaram, Mama. ரொம்ப நல்லா இருந்தது, Mama session. My name is Shivakumar, Mama.
Thank you. And unfortunately, I'm not able to see the